This is DW News, live from Berlin. Ukrainians trapped in the besieged city of Sumy try to leave after Russia agrees to a ceasefire. Red Cross buses take some residents away while the bombardment is put on pause. But the evacuation of other cities fails to materialize as fighting continues on the escape routes. Also coming up, the United States bans Russian oil imports. President Joe Biden says he won't subsidize Russia's war on Ukraine, but Europe still depends on Moscow's gas. And Poland offers to put its fighter jets at the disposal of the United States. The aircrafts could then be given to the Ukrainian military for its defense against Russian forces. I'm Raheela Mahomed. Welcome to the program. The humanitarian crisis in Ukraine continues to get worse. Attempts to evacuate people from 5 Ukrainian cities did not materialize. Russia has agreed to set up humanitarian corridors, but Ukraine claims that Russian troops are shelling the route leading away from the city of Mariupol. Some residents of the northern city of Sumy have reportedly managed to flee. Ukraine's government shared this video showing Red Cross buses evacuating people before the ceasefire ends. Sumy has seen heavy civilian casualties. Local authorities say an airstrike killed at least 21 people overnight. And despite the growing death toll, Ukraine's army says that Russia is seeing major setbacks and has managed to slow its advance.
Leaving as fast as they can. People fled the northeastern city of Sumy, trying to get out before nightfall when a ceasefire ends. The night before, airstrikes hit residential buildings and a power plant. Local authorities said 21 people were killed. Further west, people fleeing the city of Irpin, close to the capital Kyiv, crossing a damaged bridge that Russian troops have repeatedly fired on as civilians try to get across. Heartbreaking goodbyes as many of the men split up from their families to go back and fight. Others helping those unable to make the journey by themselves. We are fleeing. She is barely walking, but we are doing our best, thank you. It is good that we could cross the bridge. Bombs are exploding over there, quite intense. Irpin is totally damaged. Meanwhile, in the capital, President Volodymyr Zelensky refusing to flee. A video message to his people, trying to prepare them for the days to come. Snow is falling. This is spring. The war is the same as spring, severe, but it will be all right. We will win anyway. Military analysts say the Russian onslaught will likely get worse in the coming days. Russian forces are increasingly turning to shelling civilian areas and infrastructure, while their tanks and troops are bogged down outside key cities. In the port city of Odessa, residents are mounting barricades in front of the beloved opera house. So far, the city hasn't been hit. But if the experience of the last several days is any guide, anyone who stays behind should be prepared for the worst.
And DW's Nick Connolly has more on the situation in Kyiv.
Well, for now, in downtown Kyiv, where I am now, there's still electricity, there's still heating, there's still mobile phone networks, so that makes life bearable. And there are definitely more people here than you would think. If you walk around the streets, pretty empty, apart from journalists and soldiers and the occasional person walking a dog or going to the supermarket. We were out in the suburbs today, not far from Irpin, slightly further south, in an area where the local territorial defense forces are preparing for a Russian onslaught, where they've blown up bridges, where they have tried to kind of block the roads in a way to prevent tanks moving across. They're pretty worried that the Russians are going to build pontoon bridges and try and overwhelm their attempts to stop this happening. But it was kind of extraordinary just to see the kind of range of people now in uniform bearing arms. You had someone who usually takes high school kids on mountain hiking trips. You had IT people, you had people who work managing supermarkets. All these people are now suddenly in boots, in uniforms, with a gun on their shoulder at checkpoints, trying to look for Russian sleeper agents or to stop looting happening. And it's kind of extraordinary scene to people who in normal life have never come across each other, now suddenly united by this danger to their homes.
US President Joe Biden has announced a ban on importing Russian oil. That's in response to the invasion of Ukraine. The move comes as the United States struggles with rising fuel prices and inflation. The US imports only a small percentage of its oil from Russia, but the ban is expected to push oil prices even higher. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by DW's Raheela Mahomed in Washington, D.C. So, Raheela, just walk us through what exactly this oil ban will mean.
The ban aims to weaken Russia's economy even more. Raheela, Biden said that they want to keep pressure on President Putin and his war machine. And President Biden said that he doesn't want to subsidize this war. The thing is, oil and gas exports are the backbone of Russia's economy, and the revenue of this business of gas and oil exports make half of the budget of the Kremlin. So this should be painful for Russia, and it will have an impact, that's what they hope, on the money they need to keep this war ongoing. Now the administration has been involved in talks with the European allies on this for several weeks. Biden spoke yesterday for 2 hours with Chancellor Scholz from Germany, President Macron from France, and also with Prime Minister Johnson from the UK. We know that the UK now is also going to ban oil imports from Russia by the end of this year. And if Germany and France will follow, that remains unanswered. They are, of course, much more dependent on Russian gas and oil than the US.
Is there support for this in the United States? And how is it going to affect the American people?
It is, of course, going to affect the American people heavily. Energy prices are already high, and oil prices have already risen 58% worldwide since the beginning of the year. And gas prices have now reached an all-time high. So a ban on Russian oil imports means that the prices are going to go even higher, and they are going to stay painful high for the citizens. So all this will come in addition to an inflation we have right now, the highest inflation in the last 40 years in the United States. And let's not forget that this is also happening in an election year. The midterm elections are in November this year, and the Democrats might lose support because of the economic situation, a situation that Republicans have already been criticizing for months.
And how much pressure is this likely to put on Russia's President Vladimir Putin?
It should be painful for Russia. Gas and oil revenue makes about a half of the Kremlin's budget, as I mentioned. So this business is quite critical in Putin's war in Ukraine. But we also know that Mr. Putin is not a rational president. So it is difficult to say if this is going to stop him, if the pressure is going to be enough to make him stop that war and that invasion in Ukraine.
Raheela Mahomed speaking to us from Washington, D.C. Thank you, Raheela. Now, there's been movement on a reported three-way deal between Poland and the United States that would see Ukraine supplied with MiG-29 fighter jets. Poland's foreign ministry says it's willing to give its entire fleet of Soviet-era jets to the disposal of the U.S. But the U.S. says it wasn't consulted by Poland. Well, DW's NATO expert Terry Schultz has more on the significance of this proposed deal.
Poland has announced it's willing to hand over its MiG-29s to the United States. We don't know yet whether the United States is prepared to take them, even though we do know this has been under discussion for days. U.S. Secretary of State Tony Blinken confirmed that over the weekend. So we know that this has been something that Poland and the United States have been discussing. And of course, we hear from Ukraine daily that they need more fighter aircraft. Of course, they'd really like a no-fly zone, but that's not in the works at the moment. So we need to see whether this happens. As I understand it, the Polish government would then expect the United States to take over any of the roles that the MiGs are playing at the moment once they leave. So this is really a deal in the works, and we're seeing the negotiations sort of play out in public. So there are a lot of pieces still in play here.
You're watching DW News live from Berlin. Stick around for all the latest business news coming up next, and you can find much more analysis on the situation on Ukraine on our website, dw.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter for all the latest updates at DW News. I'm Raheela Mahomed. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.